We're back with another episode of the Ultimate Intimacy Podcast with Austin. Welcome back to the podcast, Austin. And as promised, we're
You.
going to talk about the seven effective, whatever. I'm not butcher it. I'm going to let you say what we're talking about today. We're talking about something.
seven seven habits of highly
Oh,
effective people, I think, is
that's
going to be
right.
helpful.
That's right. That's right. What am I? How did I not remember that?
The
So,
seven habits.
Cool. Yeah, so I mentioned in the last episode that my kids go into a school where they, over the period of time that they're at that school, so I think they can go up to seventh grade there. They like it's weaved into everything. And I read the book years ago, and then I took a class in school in my undergraduate, and I've revisited it several times. I found like, hey, these principles are great, but how do I like make them a part of me is probably what's going to be most helpful. So I thought what we do is introduce them and then talk about how do you integrate these habits, these skill sets, and live like a principle based marriage. I think as we outline them, people will see like, hey, if I adopt this, just like we talked about with respect, like if I adopt a mindset of respecting others and being aware of how do I cause other people to feel like in my presence is the language I use, I think couples will go, oh, this is worth adopting these ideas and living from these principles where we can create something even better. Does that make sense?
yeah, I
Hmm.
love it.
Yeah, it's
Cool.
great.
So I'm going to use their exact language, okay? And people can find this like on their website. Like we have no affiliation or whatever, but there's value, right? Wherever we can find value. So
Yeah.
habit one, and I even forgot that this is the name of the habit, but we used the language last episode, which is be proactive. Okay, so in a marriage, this is engaged in your well-being. I'm not going to wait to see what happens. Like I'm a part of this life, this family, this marriage. It's something we're trying to do with our children. It's like we shouldn't have to just ask you to do the dishes. Like you're part of the household. Can you proactively put your dishes away or whatever, right? And so the habit here, right, is it's personal responsibility. I'm a part of this marriage and I have a responsibility to make it better too, would be the idea. Okay. I find this thing with couples all the time where they start to discover like ultimately what they come to is like we've both misstepped or one has hurt the other in a certain way, but this kind of happened to us. No couple I've ever worked with is like, I think I want to mess up my marriage today. I
Yeah.
think I want my spouse to
Yeah.
like it's right. So the responsibility is you may not be responsible that your marriage isn't working. Like your spouse may have done something that blew it up, or you both. Can you be proactive and responsible for fixing the relationship, for creating something new? And so if each person takes that personal responsibility, I'm going to grow in ways that help this be better. Clearly, things can get better much easier. Okay, so the idea is I start to learn what I control in myself that influences and impacts the whole, the relationship, my spouse in a better way. Okay, so one of the things I tell a lot of couples is I say create a new way of what life of how you start your day. Um, what if you got up in the morning and you start with a prayer, and in that prayer you ask, Heavenly Father, help me to see my spouse for who they really are, or help me to feel appreciative, or help me to think of what I want for them. Just that intentionality is going to change the way you do your day. And
Hmm.
so I often, when I'm working with couples, I encourage them like start your day thinking about what are you trying to do here? Okay. You came to me because you want a better relationship. I can't make you have a better relationship. I tell them I can guide you, but you two have to create that day in and day out. 50 minutes doesn't do that. So that's habit one.
I,
And it's interesting because as I've heard your guys' story, you guys have been very proactive with we want something better.
Well, I think the difference was early on we kind of put it on cruise control, so to speak, right? It'd be like waking up and saying, "Oh, let's see what happens in the day to day," and you're in a
Right.
defensive mode to where whatever comes your way, then you react accordingly. And the same thing in marriage, right? Like, oh, well, I'll just wait for my wife to initiate, or I'll just wait for my husband to do this, or I'll just wait versus being proactive. You're constantly looking at every situation, looking at every opportunity, saying, waiting to jump on something and say, how do I do this? How do I be a better husband? How do I be more proactive in this? So I love that because that makes all the difference in the world in life and in marriage versus just sitting back and just taking whatever comes because there will be a
Right.
lot of bad stuff that comes instead of getting out there and looking for every opportunity to make whatever situation a lot better.
Isn't it interesting that like majority of our podcast episodes are about better sexual intimacy and better emotional connection, right? And how they go hand in hand. And isn't it interesting how this one word, I mean, it could go with effort or whatever, but if a wife is more proactive about his needs and he's more proactive about her needs, the
Right.
entire intimacy circle gets more passionate.
Right. What's really fascinating about this in
Impact.
kind of the experiential things I've seen in a couple is even if a spouse makes an attempt to show care, so this could look like, hey, I was thinking it might be really nice to be intimate tonight. I don't know if we're gonna have time. I'm not sure I'm gonna feel there fully because we have XYZ, but I do care about that and I would love that. For most men, it's like, hallelujah, I'm cared about. Like you're proactively telling me that I matter.
Mhm.
If we're together tonight or tomorrow or in 3 days, I'm okay because I feel cared for, right? Same thing on the flip side for a wife. If a husband says, for example, hey, I'm not sure if I'm going to get to it, but I really know this is important to you, and that's my goal is to help out with this thing or to spend some time where we can listen. That shows I value you. That shows what we talked about last episode. I respect you, right? So I think you're right. If I'm intentional, proactive, if I'm engaged, right, in
Mhm.
your well-being, you're going to feel that, and that attachment needs going to be met even before you do the thing, whatever that
Yeah.
is.
Right.
Yeah.
So the next one it builds on. It's really helpful. So the second habit is begin with the end in mind. Okay. More and more when I work with couples, I find myself using language of let's let's build something better. Dream big, right? I use this analogy of
You
like
do that a lot, and I
let's
love
let's
that.
Yeah.
let's let's upgrade your house. Okay. When you were 22 and 23 and you got married, you only knew how to build this. Let's learn how to build something better. Like what's available from God in your marriage, and let's begin with the end in mind. And the couple I met with earlier today, I said, um, well, one of the things I asked them, I said, how long did you spend planning your wedding? Okay, your wedding day, and they said, like it took time, and they had to every detail. What color are the flowers, and where are we going to get married, and what day, and it's like very, I mean, intentional.
Hmm.
And I said, how long did you spend planning the rest of your life? They're like, ah, dang it. We didn't do that. We didn't know how to do that, right? So many couples, we spend all this energy just for one day to make it special. That same principle applies. What if you want to make every day special? You plan it, you talk about it, you discuss it, you create it. And so I'm oftentimes helping couples, let's come up with a vision. What do you want in general? But then also we use this language of create the future. So what do you guys want this week? What do you want on Tuesday? Like it becomes an intentional marriage instead of, like you said, Nick, like this thing's happening to me, right?
Right.
Hmm.
So begin with the end in mind. There's some really cool things couples can do where it's like, let's sit down and just explore what's available to us. What do we want? What do we like? And so if you bring personal vision, like this is my vision of a healthy marriage that I really want to be a part of. This is a healthy, vision of what I want to be a part of. It doesn't have to match exactly.
Hmm.
It's can it work together, right? And typically couples can come to that place. It's a little bit, I don't want to call it a give and take. I want to call it a give give. Okay. It's selfless. But you can't, part of the give is I love you enough that I'm not going to take at your expense. If it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for us. That's that becoming one concept that I think is really important. And so having a shared vision, I think leads much easier to success, right?
Hmm.
Love that.
Oh, absolutely. And if we like, at every stage, if we looked forward to the future and said, okay, we're so many years away from retirement. What do I want? What do we want our marriage to look like? Do we want to have this amazing relationship when
Right.
our kids all move out? Like that's what we do. We picture what is our relationship going to look like when all of our kids are out of the house. Okay, what do we have to do daily, weekly, monthly to make it so that that happens? I mean, that's just goals,
Right.
right? Like it's
Yeah.
proactive.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because I find couples all the time telling me like their highest value is their marriage, but then where their time and energy goes doesn't support that, right? And
Yeah.
so um when you have like, okay, this is like I'm being proactive to create this vision we have, okay? And the idea is where do we start? Okay. And we talk about this on the podcast all the time. When we're looking at a relationship, it's always about safety and trust first.
Hmm.
That's it. Respect goes right in there with both of those, safety and trust. Okay. And I would say if you were going to add a third layer to the foundation, it's safety, trust, respect, you know.
Yeah.
So once you have the vision, then the idea is we got to put first things first. This is like prioritization. Okay. We believe that our marriage is our highest priority. Our kids are also a high priority. We've talked about how this gets out of sequence because kids are more demanding. But if we put our spouse and our marriage first, um, the language in the scriptures talk about cleave to your spouse and none else. And I remember hearing a talk years ago, and they said none else is not just a person. Okay, that yeah, like leave father and mother, but cleaving to your spouse is it's above the sports game and it's above Instagram and it's above, all the things, right? And so Covey in his book, when in the habit three, put first things first, if I remember right, he has this scale and it's like four quadrants. Okay. Quadrant one is important and not urgent, important, urgent. Then it was not important, urgent, not important, not urgent. Maybe we need a graphic. Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But what he points out is he says, for example, when the phone rings, we don't know if it's important yet. Okay. But it feels urgent. Ring, ring, ring. So we might be in a conversation with someone that is meaningful. And all of a sudden, our attention goes to this because it's urgent. Okay. The ding, the thing on the watch, right? We have all these urgent distraction notifications, and our attention goes away from our person to our device. And he wrote the book when there was no cell phones. It was like on the
Yeah.
wall. He's like, people would go, it feels urgent. It's ringing right now. I got to go do the thing that is urgent. I don't know if it's important yet. Okay. And so when he talks about first things first, he says, in your life, start to decide what's most important to you and that's not yet urgent. Okay. Get ahead of it is the idea. And he says, then look at the things that are urgent, that are important to you, and learn to be disciplined and let them go. And then he says, also look at the things that are not important to you, that aren't urgent, and just don't spend your time there, right? Spend
Right.
your
Yeah.
time on the things that are important to you. Ideally, you're doing things that are important that aren't urgent yet. And he says, if you're doing that, rarely are things becoming urgent. That's where people get panicky, they
Oh
get
yeah.
needy, they get angry, right? And this is where we see this stuff all the time where it's like you're spending all this time on social media, or when your dad calls or your mom calls, like you'll drop everything to go to them. That's not putting the spouse first. That's putting something else first, right? And so that principle, I think we can see why that's super
Oh
helpful.
yeah.
Helpful,
Mhm.
and that's like a self-management kind of idea. Like I'm gonna align my actions and my time and my energy with my actual values.
Yeah.
So, any thoughts on that?
Oh, I think it's
My only
great.
thought is like we're all guilty of it, right? We'll be having this amazing
Oh, yeah.
conversation with our spouse and then our phone pings. It's just a stupid text and they're usually 90% like 90, probably 99% like not important, right?
Right.
But we pick it up and we instantly prioritize that, which is kind of disrespectful, but we all do it.
Hmm.
And it
Right.
just shows our spouse right there that like my phone just took priority over this
Yeah.
important conversation.
Right.
So I
Yep.
know this isn't the topic, and I know we're not talking about phones and distractions and all that stuff, but can you just give one tip on how we can just be better at that one thing? Because I think this is a really big problem.
Yeah,
Just one
you're
tip.
Just
talking the
one tip,
phone,
just one 30
the
second
phone.
tip, because like
Sure.
maybe I could do better personally at not putting it in my pocket when I am going on our 10-20 minute walk at night, because I
Hmm.
know my kids are fine. Like they're older. I know younger kids is
Right.
a different story, but maybe we could be more intentional on they don't always have to be right next to us. They don't always have to be in our pocket, and maybe you put them on silent for a certain amount of hours at night. Like
Sure.
maybe that's the tip,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I'll share. So I'll share this. Not that I do this perfectly, but I'll share what I just did. So I don't know if you can. I don't know that you can see this exactly, but the apps on my phone are not anything that people can get my attention very easily. Okay. I don't have email on my phone. I don't have Instagram. I don't have Facebook. I have Marco Polo and I have my text messages. And Marco Polo is like in a back folder where I have to go there because I want to, not because I saw a notification.
Right.
I've done this intentionally because with business and work and needs, I can feel constantly needed by people. And so it's being disciplined and boundaried. And I just knew for myself, like I've been trained to look at this thing every 10 seconds, even if it doesn't ring. So I give myself, we do this every beginning of every school year with our kids. We do it as a family where we do a tech detox. It's like, let's strip everything away. Let's reset. And so I would say 75% of the time my phone it's for calls and texts. I have some tools on there. And then when I'm doing Instagram or business related stuff for email, it's set aside intentional time where I'm going to come to my laptop and it's that time instead of I'm always on it,
Yeah.
answering it as quickly as possible. And it's tricky,
Hmm.
but when I'm disciplined with that, one, my wife and my children feel more prioritized, more valued. And then I literally don't have like it's not available to me in here. I can
Yeah.
look at it, but it's not there. Does that make sense? I'm like,
I love that you shared
you
that,
did that.
because
Yeah.
you made me remember, like I don't have any notifications on besides text messages, and a lot of my group texts or my group me's, because I'm a mom, I get a lot of different groups.
Hmm.
Most of them are silenced. And
Right.
that has trained my brain to think that I really don't have to look at my phone every 20 seconds or even every
Right.
20 minutes. And that's been, and
Yeah.
I've been trying better to, like today, Nick's like, where's your phone? I need a code or something. I'm like, I literally don't know. Like I'm trying to leave
Right.
it
And I
some,
was like, you don't know what's going on.
I'm trying to
Right.
be more intentional about like, I don't want to be distracted when my kids ask me a question or when Nick asks me a
Right.
question. If it's not near me or it's not in my pocket, I'm not gonna. I turn it on silent. I hardly ever have it on
Right.
ring, and that really helps me. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
anyway,
No,
You
you're
know,
get off
I,
topic. I feel like
you're
we
good.
made some really good.
No.
Like this will change your marriage, guys. You know.
Yeah. Let's stay there for just a second because I remember going to a training years ago. It was in Las Vegas, and one of the things they came in, they said we've figured out how to take the neuroscience that we talk about therapeutically and adapt it to this. Like it's science. Like we know how to get people hooked on things. We know how to get people's attention, and that's what was said. The commodity is your attention.
yeah.
Everything here on this computer, the
Just to pay
television,
attention.
it's trying to get your attention. And this is what I see so often with kids when I'm doing trauma work. It's almost always I didn't feel like a priority. My parents were there, but they weren't emotionally there, right? And so for us that value marriage and family, it's like I want to be present, not just physically. Like I want you to have my attention. I mean, my wife said to this, she's like, everybody's getting the best of you. I was like, I gotta fix some stuff, right? Like I see my clients earlier in the day, I see my family, and so I switched some things. For a long time, I didn't do clients before 10 a.m. I still rarely do. And I try to do some shifts when I get out of work where it's like, you're getting the best version of me. My attention is here. It's not distracted with work or email or the sports. Like, and it's discipline. I had to develop that, and it's not perfect, but that's part of why I did this. I'm like, I know this thing can get my attention. I don't want it to have my attention. I want the people I love to, and so
Yeah.
that's something I would really encourage.
That's
Yeah.
great for sharing that. I thought that was great.
I thought it was an
Cool.
important piece because they're
Cool.
wrecking
Yeah, I
marriage.
think you're
So
right.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So habit four is think win-win. Okay, it's like there's a mutual benefit. We're collaborating. We're co-creating a vision, and we want it to work for both of us. Okay, this skill like if you feel someone's looking out for win-win, it builds trust, right? I mean, we went through this process in our business relationship, right? We had to work through some differences and not negative, but it's like, hey,
Yeah.
I feel valued. Do you feel valued? Are we both bringing a win-win situation? And that builds trust. And when husband and wife have trust and safety, we've talked about this, and I genuinely feel like my spouse wants me to be happy, that changes things pretty rapidly, right?
Mhm.
And that requires a level of maturity. I share this with couples. It takes a lot, I think, for all of us to get to this place to go, turns out I'm not perfect. Okay. Turns out I'm not perfect. But if I have a value that I really want to be a good spouse, then I want to hear what's not working for you. Okay. I might sting a little bit. Can you help me see me in the ways I don't see so I can improve and grow? If two people are being mature to do that and go, I know I'm not perfect, but I want to do a great job. Please help me see how I can be better. Then that win-win concept comes into play.
Mhm.
If we think that way, okay, then we can create a life where we're both happy. So, right, I think the audience knows you two are different. You have different wants and needs, but you both are winning. Okay, neither of you are losing, and that's, I think, what couples want is how do we both win?
Yeah.
And so it can't be win at the expense of you losing sometimes, and then you win sometimes and I lose.
Gotta,
That's
yeah.
not
Yeah.
Gotta be a
yeah.
win-win.
Yep.
So
Agreed.
Love
yeah.
that.
Okay, so the other one is, I think, where we started last episode. It's habit 5. It's seek first to understand, okay, then to be understood. Okay. I shared this with someone not that long ago, but I remember, so when I went to school, we were seeing clients, I think, in the second semester. Okay. And
Oh,
we had no skills yet. We didn't have tools, right? And you have like 50 minutes. It's a pretty long time with, right? And so I remember, like, I don't understand. I don't know your worldview. I don't know what works for you. And so it was a lot of curiosity. And I mean, I was literally just being curious. I was taking notes. And sometimes out of session, I'd look at those notes. I'm like, what else do I want to understand? And then over time, it's like, oh, I do have some things that can help you, whether it was past experiences or tools I was learning or whatever. But that skill set of helping someone feel understood, not just understanding, but if you can help them feel understood, that's a game changer for a relationship. Okay. A lot of times with women, um, especially women, they say he's always trying, this is the stereotype, he's always trying to fix it, right? Um, Very frequently, if he just understands, that's actually the fix. Okay. So, good news for men. A lot of times you may not even have to quote unquote do something different other than I'm here, I'm present, and I want to understand you. And a lot of times when someone feels understood or even validated, that not that they agree, but that their feelings make sense, it calms a lot. And so this principle of like, I want to understand you. And I also want to be understood. This puts responsibility in both people's hands, but it actually puts responsibility for two things in my hands. I'm responsible to understand you. If I don't understand you yet, I got to figure out what's going on for you. I also have responsibility that if I want to be understood, I got to figure out how to communicate to you in a way that you understand. If two people are doing both of those at the same time, you typically don't have communication problems.
mm,
And we see this with couples all the time. They're not, communicating well. And so again, I mentioned this skill. One of them that worked for us was literally, I'm gonna learn. I'm gonna understand you. I'm gonna write notes. I'm gonna think about it. And when you're ready, there's some things I'd like to share too. If you want to understand me, now we can choose something different. So real quick, this is call it empathetic communication. There's a difference between I understand you and I don't care, and
Hmm.
I understand you and I care, and that sounds painful and that sounds difficult, and if I were in your shoes, that'd be hard for me too. That feels different. You know what I
mhm.
mean? And so developing that ability to show empathy, to show care, um, and again, you don't have to adopt the same perspective. just understanding it and showing that your perspective matters. So any thoughts on that?
I think that's great.
I think it's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amen.
Don't need to add
Cool.
anything to that.
I don't have anything better to say.
Cool. Okay. Let's go to habit 6. This one's they call synergize. The habit of creative cooperation. Okay. The idea here is we're developing new solutions that neither one of us could do individually. Okay. So in any type of relationship, but especially a husband and wife, right? If we can tap into my goodness and you can tap into your goodness or bring it together, we're going to create something better than either one of us could individually. Sometimes in here we've used the language of like masculine, feminine, right? Can I be rooted in my masculine strength and you in your feminine strength, and we bring something different? We both good but different. I
Yeah.
learned this recently. The kind of the Greek and Hebrew kind of root of help me, which you hear in some like spiritual language, like your help me. It's not like little buddy. It's not like helper or
Yeah.
assistant. What the root means is someone of equal but different power, a force of equal and different, right? And so husband and wife coming together, it creates that synergistic thing where when things are working well, you're not both doing the same thing all the time, but you're a team.
Yeah.
And if husband and wife can see their skills and gifts and capacities, right, then you start to find more balance. You start to understand what works well. And so this habit, this principle of, hey, I want to cooperate with you in a way where we're collaborating, we're both bringing our highest level. And sometimes, like with my wife, I've said this before, where I'm like, the analogy is, hey, I have some things that you need. Let's call it that I'm providing, I don't know, I'm providing water to the home where you feed the children. Okay. But to get the water to you, I actually need electricity. Well, you actually have the electricity. So I need some electricity so I can bring the water so you can give it to the kids. Okay. This can go up and up. And so when a couple can like work synergistically, it's knowing I have something that I contribute to the marriage that really helps you, and you have something that you contribute that really helps me, and it actually allows me to do the next part, and right, and then it works. When
Mm-hmm.
couples can kind of map that out, then it's kind of just like you have a map of, hey, here's what works really well for us. Okay.
Love that.
Thoughts on that? Is that all right?
I think it's great. I love how you presented it, and I'm just thinking of our own marriage and all the different ways that we try to work together and do things together. And she makes me better in so many ways, and I probably make her better in a way or two.
So many ways.
But no, it's so true. It's so true.
It's so true.
Right. That's true. Yeah. Right. And so understanding that is worth taking the time. Then habit 7 is called sharpen the saw. Okay. So this is
Sharpen the
like
what?
sharpen the saw. Okay. The
Okay.
idea is like if you're looking at a marriage relationship, like we're both valuable to the whole.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is like this daily renewal. Okay. Like I need to do things that help me be my best self on a daily basis. So I'm not getting depleted or exhausted. And you see this with couples where they're not doing self-care, they're not one's overwhelmed and the other's chilling too much or whatever, right? It's creating balance, it's creating space where you both have time to connect with God, to connect with yourself, some hobbies, some friendships. Like we need that balance. And so that work life family balance is tricky, as we all know.
Yep.
Right. And so creating if we go back to like start with the end in mind and you're creating the week, it would be like build in places to sharpen the saw, build in some places to have some, collaborative conversations. When a person and a couple together are supportive of each other's, I don't want to just call them hobbies because you can do hobbies that aren't rejuvenating. But if you're supportive of rejuvenation and there's balance, it becomes more motivational. It's like, hey, we have a life that we give of ourselves, we receive, we get energized. I would say ideally, you're both receiving from God, you're bringing to the table, you're receiving from
Yeah.
God, you're bringing to the marriage. But that concept of sharpening the saw, like I know early when I was a therapist, I didn't have, we call it therapy muscles. They weren't built up yet. Like I would go to work and I'd be like exhausted. I'd hear about, trauma and couples conflict and all that. And like I wanted to be there for my wife and kids. I was like, I have nothing left. So I had to figure out, how do I increase my capacity? How do I say no when it doesn't leave me enough energy for my family, right? And create balance. So I remember for a long time, once a quarter, I would go on like a backpacking trip. And it wasn't a heavy, hard one. It was I need to go in the mountains and like just rejuvenate, like replenish, reconnect. I need to release some stuff or whatever. And my wife had things that she needed as well. So that one, sharpen the saw, is followed. There's actually an eighth habit. Okay. It's not in the book, Seven Habits, but there's an eighth habit. It's called Find Your Voice and Inspire Others to Find Theirs. Okay. I think that's what you're doing with the podcast. Okay. You've found what works with the two of you, and you're sharing that. You're strengthening each other and people that listen. And when a couple is operating from that place of, hey, we figured out how we work well, you don't have to start a podcast. People around you just start to feel hope of like, oh, they seem to like each other. They seem happy. Like it can be done, right? It like inspires this feeling of hope. And so I think, when I see couples like really go, hey, let's adopt these principles and let's learn how to use them. Then you're consistently looking at vision and you're creating it, kind of like we said, like make every day special. Like not just your first wedding day and then it gets worse. That's
Yeah.
happens for a lot of us, but
Yeah.
it should be better, better, better because we're growing, is my thoughts. So
What did you say the last one was? What was the title of that?
let's see what the title is. So it's
Number
the
8.
yeah, it's the habit of finding your voice and
Finding your
inspiring others to find theirs. Yeah.
Yeah, I like what you shared with that. And I feel like when you do all of these things, like we always say, sorry, I'm repeating, but when you do these things, especially that one, it benefits your children and benefits your entire home, right? Because you're
Right.
saying like, and when you said sharpen your saw, like I was thinking while you were talking, when we sharpen something, we're making it better. We're bringing it back to its original um, productivity. When we
Right.
sharpen something, sometimes, especially metal, it can make it more glossy. So
Hmm.
just like the whole point is like all these things like make your marriage better. And it makes
Right.
the kids' lives better. So I love that all 8 of those were like
When
so
and with marriage.
they're perfect for marriage. And I love even more that our
Yeah.
kids are like our kids are probably a similar school because we're close by, but how cool that our kids are learning these things,
I
right?
know. Right. But if people adopt these habits, right, their habits, their principles, right? I mean, the title, they're habits of highly effective people. We want to be highly effective spouses. They're just principles that if they're adopted and integrated and we live by them, then we're consistently creating again and again something meaningful and we're learning from it. So one last piece I'll end with is in the genuine understanding, this is where couples have a paradigm shift. I see this a lot in my work where one thinks this thing and then the other shares this and is like, oh, I see this differently. So I'll keep this brief, but in the book, Covey talks about a man getting on a train with kids that were rambunctious and the man was checked out. And Covey's like having all these thoughts and beliefs, and we call it telling a story. He's making meaning. This man doesn't care about his kids and he's probably dead, whatever. He's creating all this story. And so finally he goes up to the man. He's like, I don't know what's going on, but everybody in the train is annoyed by your kids. They're like flicking people's newspapers. And the man looks up and he goes, oh, he's like, sorry. Like, we just left the hospital where my wife and their mother died. Okay. Instantly, everything Covey thought previous to that was gone. All his judgment, all his frustration, all his anger, because he had new understanding. He had real understanding because he took the time to go, hey, what's going on? And the man said, I'm hurting and I'm suffering. And when I sit with couples, it's typically their bad behaviors because they're hurting and they're suffering and they don't see it in each other. When they start to see that, it shifts and all the anger and frustration and judgment, it goes away. That's the birthplace of creating something new because now I see who you are and what's going on for you. And now I want to help you. Does that make sense?
Beautiful.
Yeah, I'm really glad you ended with
That's a
that
great analogy.
powerful story or analogy. I think that makes, I mean,
So
so,
good.
Cool.
so good. So,
So good.
well, This was another great podcast episode. We hope, as an audience, you're all enjoying the Fridays we do with Austin on the therapy side of things. We feel like they're so valuable. And as we always say, if you want to reach out, email us at amy@ultimateintimacy.com. We can put you in touch with Austin. And Austin, just grateful to have you on the podcast every
Yeah,
Friday.
thank you.
Excited for
Appreciate it.
things that are ahead. And again, to all of you out there listening, we hope all of you find ultimate intimacy in your relationship.